Well, Kurt, I think some interesting developments in the dynamic of the Clash in Paris main event with the four-way Roman Reigns. We'll talk about that opening segment in a bit, but let's talk about the ending of the show and Jey Uso taking Roman's advice. Cole pointed that out, definitely what they're aiming for here. The advice Roman said is don't do it for the boys in the back. Don't do it for anybody but yourself. Take it home. Do it for the for yourself. And Jey did come out, help. And he wanted to help LA Knight against Seth, kind of taking CM Punk's advice in a sense. Let's look out for each other. But then turned ultimately on Punk. Turned in a casual sense, not a wrestling angle turning heel sense. Just turned on him, gave him a super kick. And the underline from Cole being, yeah, Jey knows on Sunday it's every man for himself. So what did you think of the way they built this? Obviously, most of the tension was between Knight and Punk, but Punk's going to have a chip on his shoulder for what Jey did to him. And now you got three baby faces who are not getting along, which helps prevent Seth from being a baby face in the perception he's outnumbered because these three aren't going to be looking out for each other. So fans will just kind of pick who they want. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think tonight they sold the main event for Sunday as well as they could with all the dissension, all the tension between the three opponents. But considering that Jey got the last word in tonight with, laying out Knight and also laying out Punk, I think we all know, I mean, we could have probably predicted this a month ago when the match was signed. I think we all know who's not winning the championship this Sunday. But regardless of all that, it was still a fun segment. I think they did as good a job as they could to, make Jey look like he would actually have a chance at winning. I mean, it was fine for what it was, but realistically, they maybe should have done this about a week ago to make it more interesting, but better late than never in that sense. So I think it worked well for the main event, and more than anything for the main event, I know you were happy about this. At least we got a clean finish, because I was really concerned we weren't going to get a clean finish when Rollins came out, but luckily we did get that clean finish, and it worked out that way. But overall, yeah, having Jey be the last man standing tonight, it was a nice way to kind of sell the idea of possibly him winning. But realistically, considering that Rollins just got the title not even a month ago, we all know how this one's going to end.
Yeah, when Cole said, what was his wording? Of course, we knew this was going to happen. I was like, is he commenting at a meta sense on the booking? Like, oh, of course there has to be a run and finish. But like you just said, ultimately, we got to finish with a finisher. It wasn't the conclusion, Cole noting that Seth didn't touch anyone, so it wasn't an automatic DQ. So I was happy to see that. The dynamic with Punk, Jey, and Knight, do you think they've struck a balance of not steering the fans in a certain direction? This is kind of, pick your favorite wrestler out of the three. You might like all of them, but ultimately you might lean towards one, but we're not going to, booking-wise, give you a reason to turn against one or more for the other. I think you're an LA Knight fan. He stood up to Punk being kind of bossy or trying to be the alpha. If you're a Punk fan, you see him as speaking the truth, speaking reasonably. Hey, let's just get along and look out for each other until we get to Sunday at the Clash. And if you're Jey Uso, hey, it is every man for himself, and he shouldn't be charitable to a fault when it comes to what's going on. So yeah, to me, it feels like they've struck a balance, and it just comes down to leaving it up to fans to decide whose side they are on.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting dynamic Sunday in the four-way with the crowd. It's definitely going to be interesting to see who they cheer for most, because that crowd is going to be white hot on Sunday, regardless of whether or not the event is good or a classic or whatever or whatnot. That crowd is going to be on fire, just like the crowd was on fire tonight. If there was one thing about this show that stood out, that's been standing out about these last few shows overseas, it has been that damn crowd. They always put these damn crowds in America to shame, and tonight was another example. Between what happened in the main event and especially what happened in that opening segment with Roman and Bronson Reed, the crowd was probably the MVP of the whole show. But yeah, as far as the three components of Punk, Knight, and Jey Uso, it is an interesting dynamic with them all being baby faces and Rollins being the lone heel in this scenario. So you're kind of forced to choose which one you like and which one's your favorite out of the three. But if I had to pick one who probably the crowd would be most behind, considering the reaction he got at SummerSlam when I was there for in person, it would have to be CM Punk. As popular as Jey Uso is, as popular as LA Knight is, the popularity and the love that crowd has for Punk is second to none. And I don't think anybody gets cheered harder than him come Sunday.
Yeah. I think the chants for Punk are louder than anyone's. Knight doesn't get as much of a chance to get cheered. He was in the match. But I would say if I had to pick someone who they're leaning, who they're booking in framing slightly more heelish, it's LA Knight. To me, he feels like he's been a little more short-tempered, less willing to listen to reason, but it's super slight, and I don't know if it's intentional or if it's intended for the audience to see him as just being kind of the third out of the three baby faces in terms of depth chart, in terms of, who's likely to win a world title. And so if they're trying to give him a little bit more of an edge, do you agree with that? If you were to pick one guy, it'd be Knight, who is maybe being a little more temperamental or short-tempered?
I could see it going down that road because Punk, shrugged off the fact that he knocked him to the table last week. So that is clear to kind of light a fire under him, which we saw tonight in a sense. So we could definitely see that build more as the weeks go on. I feel like after this match is over on Sunday, it could lead to a Punk and LA Knight match possibly at WrestlePalooza. I could see them definitely extending this a little longer, and we could perhaps get an LA Knight heel turn between now and then. I wouldn't turn Jey Uso. He's just too popular with the crowd and he's too marketable. So yeah, if there was anybody to turn heel out of these three, it would probably have to be Knight.
And I'm not even leaning towards any of them turning heel as much as I'm trying to just diagnose, do they want fans to side one way or the other for the sake of telling a story? Some people have thought Punk wasn't being heelish, and we've heard some people saying this, that he wasn't being heelish, but he's going to be frustrated ultimately by Jey and LA Knight not listening to him. And then as is sort of his personality off screen, when things get heated, he will be right, but he will make people so miserable about how right he is that he'll react in an over-the-top way that will turn him heel. So yeah, I mean, I'm intrigued by this. Ultimately, when you have three baby faces against a heel champion, I think it's baked in as there's a headwind where you're going to give sympathy to the heel because he's fighting three people who are all out to get him. WWE was cognizant of that clearly and has told a story in recent weeks to extinguish the idea that there is an advantage that there's an advantage for Knight, Jey, or Punk because they're not getting along. Is it paint by numbers? Yes, but is it smart? Yes. Is it surprising and unexpected? No, because surprises are usually results of stupid bookers making stupid decisions based on a stupid premise that surprises are better than logic. And that wasn't happening here. So for people who are complaining that, it seems too predictable, too paint by numbers, well, there's a right way to do things, and you don't just do things a dumb way in order to, quote, be surprising. A lot of companies have taken hits for doing
WCW.
That. Yeah, so... Yeah, and a certain booker especially, but it's not just one booker. So yeah, this is I think this is a really solid build, and I think they've made the world title that Seth is holding and the star power in this match because of the build. It feels it's crazy to say this because it's Seth and Punk again, and it's Jey Uso in a world title match, and it's LA Knight, who's not really a top guy. It kind of feels like it's earned its place on top of PLE for me. I mean, not WrestleMania main event, but this, not every match is going to be WrestleMania standards that headlines at PLE. What do you think, Kurt?
Yeah, honestly, I thought we were going to get this match at SummerSlam, but instead of Jey Uso being in the match, Gunther being in the match and being the champion. But then when they did the angle with Rollins getting hurt at Saturday night's main event, that was all out the window. So yeah, I kind of thought in a way we were going to get this match at SummerSlam. So considering that we're getting this match here, I'm happy for it. I mean, look, is it predictable? Yes. Do we know who's going to win? Yes. But at the end of the day, the match, I think, will still be fun and will still be great in its own way. And in general, I think this card looks really good overall with this match, the John Cena and Paul match, also the Nikki Bella and Becky Lynch match, which we'll probably get into later. Yep. Yeah, between all these matches, also Sheamus and Rusev. How can I forget that match? Yep. Overall, this card looks really good. I mean, in general, I'm not going to put my expectations too high, but from what I see so far, I think the show will end up surprising us in the end, kind of like Evolution did.
Yeah. Let's pause and introduce the show and ourselves, and then I want to talk about the crowd. I want to talk about Roman a little bit more, the opening segment, and then you just listed a number of things that developed, kind of framed what's coming up in the stakes and raised the stakes in some cases for Sunday. This is a Wade Keller Pro Wrestling post-show for Monday, August 25th, 2025. I'm Wade Keller, host of the show, editor, publisher, and founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter and the website, PWTorch.com. You can find my live coverage of Raw, Dynamite, SmackDown, and WWE and AEW PLEs on weekends at that website, PWTorch.com. VIP members of PW Torch get access to an ad-free version of the website with exclusive content, PWTorch.com/GoVIP. For details on that. We live stream our post shows. The ones that I host are the aforementioned Raw, Dynamite, SmackDown on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on the PWTorch YouTube channel. So you can watch us live after those shows end within just 2, 3, 4 minutes, usually. We are live on the PWTorch YouTube channel. So thanks to those who are joining us live here at our earlier time slot. You can also download our podcast, which is what most of you do. Search Wade Keller on your podcast app and subscribe to both the red logo and the blue logo. The blue logo is not our post shows, it's our main podcast. And that includes the weekly flagship, almost always on Tuesday nights. Jason Powell from ProWrestling.net, I believe, is on schedule tomorrow to join me as co-host. We have a rotation of co-hosts, and we cover a broad array of topics, not just what happens on the TV shows, but the big news stories also. So I hope you're subscribing to that. And then finally, while you're at it, search PWTorch in your podcast app and subscribe to the PWTorch Daily Cast and the PWTorch VIP free sample feed. So there's 4 free feeds, 2 Wade Keller feeds, 2 PWTorch feeds. Get them all on your phone, hit refresh, and you'll get a lot of cool free content. All those shows go commercial free when you become a VIP member. If you get a full VIP membership, you can customize the feeds and break them down by show or by cluster or theme. And you also get access to our 35 plus years of awesome archives, hundreds of retro radio shows from the 90s, decades of my news breaking Torch Talk transcribed interviews in the Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter, many of them in audio format, and then over 2 decades, well over 2 decades now of podcasts, including post pay-per-view and PLE roundtables dating back to 2003 or 2000, I think 2003. So lots of stuff to lose yourself in if you like our brand of wrestling coverage. We've been doing it for decades, and you can get access to it all with that membership. Kurt Cadet is my co-host. Good to have you back in the co-host chair, Kurt.
Great to be back. And yes, I am Kurt Cadet. I am a contributor to PWTorch. I write weekly reviews for Monday Night Raw about the feuds and storylines going on that specific show. And I also do a podcast with Chris Adams where we talk about different wrestling storylines and angles and also popular movies that were out around the same time. And in our future episodes coming up, since Hulk Hogan recently passed away, I want to do a Hulk Hogan related one. So we're going to do one about the movie The Breakfast Club and also the first WrestleMania because they happened kind of around the same time. And also as far as teen movies, we're going to do another one featuring the movie Varsity Blues and also the 1999 Royal Rumble, which are kind of very similar if you watch both of those very closely. So those episodes will be coming very soon. So yes, those are my contributions. Also co-host a podcast called Clash of Champions. And yes, I'm here to break down this crazy episode of Raw that we saw from Birmingham, England, and everything else that happened in between.
Kurt, you always say me the sentence that I usually have to say to most others, which is, tell us what you do for the Torch.
Yes.
You jump right into it. I love it. You're also eat a vegan diet.
Yes, 12 years, just like Bryan Danielson.
That's awesome. Very healthy choice and a delicious choice too.
Oh yes.
Very, very, very underrated. I'm primarily vegan diet and have for going on 18 years now. So
awesome.
Yes. All right, cool. Let's play into the stereotype of vegans and talk about that obsessively for and preach for like 10 minutes. That's not what we do. We just quietly go about our dietary choice. Sometimes we wear t-shirts though.
Yeah, t-shirts are a big part of my thing now as far as promoting veganism, wrestling, hip-hop.
There you go. Awesome. Yeah, t-shirts are billboards for our interests, and it's a cool way to express ourselves sort of passively, just catch people's attention. All right. So if you want to be part of the show, if you're watching us live, you can be a video caller. And if you follow us on Patreon, we post our link there. If you're a full VIP subscriber, you can find a link in my TV reports to do that. You can also email us. While you're watching the show live, or if you don't watch us live, just while you're watching Raw, Dynamite, or SmackDown, wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com is the email if you want to participate that way. So again, if you're listening to us on the podcast side of things and you wish you were part of the show, but you can't make it work, we understand that, but you can still ask your question or make your comments via email, wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. And you can also partake in the chat. And we have a live chat for our people who watch us live on YouTube. All right. I do want to plug, by the way, I plug the shows I'm on. We have a live NXT post show here on the YouTube channel on Tuesday nights, and then also post shows after pay-per-views and PLEs. And Brandon LeClaire hosted Wrestling Night in America's post show yesterday after the AEW pay-per-view, nearly 3 hours. That is available right now with co-host Brian Zillum. And Sean from Tennessee was part of the conversation and others. So you can find that on the YouTube channel or on the PWTorch Daily Cast feed. And then that'll be the case Sunday also. We'll have our live pay-per-view, or PLE, I guess, post-show after Clash in Paris. All right, Kurt, you praised the crowd earlier. I have some praise, but I have some criticism. there is an element of the show becoming, and I know this happens mostly in Europe, and there's a novelty. They don't go there as often, and it's a cultural thing too, and I get it. I'm not negative on it, but I feel a danger to be too praiseworthy about a crowd that is there to not observe, but put themselves over with how many chants and songs they can use to hijack segments and storylines. They're also, to me, I mean, I let people chant what they want to have a good time. I'm not telling people what to do, but I do give more credit to people who are not chanting, "We want tables," or "This is awesome," or "Fight forever," but are reacting to the story that's being told in the ring instead of contributing their review of what they are seeing as if the ultimate compliment is to tell wrestlers who are trying to get you to care about the outcome that you just appreciate the effort. Now, I think 80% of wrestlers would disagree with what I'm saying, and they've never heard anything so absurd as why wouldn't you want praise from the audience? But the highest crowd response you can get is Sami Zayn in Montreal. It's Jey Uso fighting Gunther. It's Cody Rhodes trying to complete a story where the fans are just cheering for an outcome. And these crowds are about listen to us sing. And now we're going to go with a tired cliche. This is awesome. And we want tables chants because that's what we do. And it's fun to participate. It's okay. It's fun. It's fun. It's fine. But it also feels a little self-indulgent and excessive sometimes. And that gets amplified on nights or for us an afternoon like this. I just want crowds to be absorbed into the show and not go, what can we do next to spend, a minute of time making it about ourselves. It's I know there's some cultural pushback on that, but does it ever get to you, Kurt, or are you just like, let me sit here and watch you sing and I'm all in?
It depends. Like, for instance, like whenever they do the Bayley chant, like whenever they do the Bayley, I want to know if you could be my girl, like that chant for like 10 minutes straight. I think there was like a Raw about a decade ago when they did that. That's a little excessive. It's fun. It's entertaining. It would be great to be in the crowd for it, but admittedly, it does take away from the match and from the story. But there's other cases where the crowd is like very hyped and very amped, and they kind of just add to the show. Like, for instance, that Roman Reigns segment that opened the show tonight, where the crowd was just so into him, singing his praises, singing Roman Reigns. I thought it was fun. I didn't think it was them like, going to business for themselves or, taking away from the actual performers. I think in that case it worked. But yes, there are some cases where it does go too far. It is excessive. But from tonight, I didn't really get that vibe.
I'm not blaming the fans for having a good time. I think there's sort of an enabling and an encouraging that WWE has done that has led to it. And I think the highest a sign of the highest success of really effective booking is when fans are cheering for the baby faces, booing for the heels, and care about the outcome of a match. And they're not into singing. Anyway, I don't want to. I feel like I'm belaboring a point I wanted to make briefly. But you complimented them, and I wanted to temper it a little bit. It's fun. I enjoy it to a point, and then I'm like, let's get on with the show. And it didn't cross the line with me today, but it walked right up to it. All right, more fun stuff. Roman Reigns. Oh, you talked about the opening promo with the crowd. By the way, it is amazing seeing the crowd so pro Roman with the years and years of struggle with that. And so, my thoughts about crowds as being a little excessive and a little too much sometimes. I am not taking for granted at all how popular Roman Reigns is and what a journey he's been on to get there. Tell me about how because this is still kind of fresh. Like Paul Heyman said, it was 5 years ago. The bloodline was formed. Roman hasn't done a lot of solo center ring live promos since turning babyface. There's a novelty here, and there was no guarantee it was going to work. He went away for a while. Sometimes fans turn against wrestlers who are only part-time or aren't really as dedicated as the people who show up every week. Roman's super over, and it's working. How do you think he's doing as a babyface? Because the thing with him was he didn't want to pander to fans when he was a babyface. Like he just wasn't going to go, I love you guys, thank you for cheering me. Almost every babyface did it. He couldn't get himself to do it. He's kind of coming around a little bit on that too. Not where it feels like pandering, but he's finding a way to remain cool, but not completely emotionally inaccessible and distant from the crowd like he was in his first babyface run. Kurt.
Yeah, I think he's doing great. I was even in the crowd at the Raw after SummerSlam and also SummerSlam itself. And yeah, he got monster reactions. And yeah, just a crazy difference from when I would go to shows a decade ago and the crowd would boom out of the building and whatnot and just not be feeling him at all. To coming to 2025 and the crowd is just all over him. It's just a different vibe and a different reaction when he comes out, like people like him, people like Punk, Cody, Cena. Yeah, he definitely has that aura to him. And yeah, it's unfortunate that he didn't have it with him years back, as talented as he was. But yeah, ever since that whole bloodline storyline started, it was just the best thing that could have ever happened to him. And now he just has that aura and he's just like on that upper echelon of like legends and stars who were like the face of certain eras. And I know he's kind of like more heading towards the end of his career because he even said that himself that he's probably not going to wrestle for probably longer than 3 years. But for that time being, yeah, he has that rock star god status. Those crowd reactions and just that presence and that aura when he comes out. Yeah, just a different vibe when he's there, regardless if he's part-time, full-time, in between. Yeah, Roman Reigns is definitely that guy.
What do you think of Paul Heyman's reference to Roman having broken up with him, saying, talking about 5 years ago, I went from the advocate from Lesnar to the wise man for the tribal chief. And he's kind of walking a line of not being with him anymore, but not just sort of trashing him. What did you think of how Heyman handled this situation?
I think he's up to something. He's always up to something. So anytime he praises Roman, like he kind of did in that promo about a month or so ago, the last time we did this show together, I know that I'm not going to be buying it. I know that he's up to something. So in this case, it was kind of the same vibe for me, the same scenario for me. But yeah, it's about what I would expect for Heyman to do. It's definitely creative and adds to whatever he's probably going to do to Roman next, because I definitely see him screwing Roman again sooner or later, possibly as soon as this Saturday in the match with Bronson Reed, because Roman's supposed to go film Street Fighter soon. So I could see a scenario where he does lose but gets screwed over when he loses, and then that writes him off TV. I feel like this is going to be kind of like an Earthquake Hulk Hogan type vibe with what they do with Roman to write him off.
Let's talk about Bronson Reed getting a spotlight here, big time.
Yeah.
This was the most mic time he's gotten. It wasn't about Seth doing Seth over and over again like he's been doing. We talked a lot about that last week on the post show, that Seth hasn't really adjusted at all to the context he's in. He just happens to be hanging around Reed and Breaker and Heyman. And you don't expect him to just completely change who he is, but it'd be kind of nice if it felt like he was part of a team. I think they tried to do that backstage later in the show, but here it was Bronson Reed's chance on the spotlight, to have the spotlight. What did you think?
I loved it. I've always thought Bronson Reed is pretty good on the mic, and from what I saw tonight, he's every bit as good as I was saying about a year ago. If anything, in some ways, I think he's better on the mic than Braun Breaker is. I find him entertaining. I find this whole Shuafala tribal thief thing to be a who. It's been definitely a bit nice addition to his character. And this is one of the matches I'm really looking forward to this Saturday between these two. Whether he wins or he loses, it's a great, incredible spot for him to be in. I mean, he's faced Seth Rollins at PLEs before and whatnot, and been in the War Games match and whatnot, but he's never had like a solo PLE match with a star on the caliber of Roman's level. So regardless of how it turns out, this is great for him. And I think they're going to have a kick-ass match Saturday, and it's going to boost his stock up even higher.
The angle he took, talking about how comparing Australia to where Roman is from, and that talk about that, because that was, that's Reed just bringing it. He's just like, I'm not backing down from you. I'm going to say I had it tougher than you, and I've got more of an edge. And then Roman's reaction of, he's a Samoan. Why didn't anyone tell me? That makes me your tribal chief. So yeah, talk about that exchange.
Yeah, it was a nice history lesson. Who knew the dude was that great when it came to history and was that smart. But yeah, like I said, just Bronson Reed on the mic tonight, he definitely was entertaining and a lot better than probably people have been giving him credit for being. And yeah, that whole exchange, that whole back and forth they had, and just the brawl they had afterwards, I think that was one of the better parts of the whole show. Between that and probably the ending, yeah, both of those parts really stood out.
Yeah. Where is Reed going to come out of this? Let's talk 8 months from now. Is Reed going to be kind of get a little boost, but do the job like he will Sunday in all likelihood, and kind of settle in as a distant third in this faction, however long it lasts, and just kind of end up in the same spot? Or is there a chance that 8-12 months from now, he's kind of perceived as a legit top tier guy on the mic, in the ring, and with the idea being you could imagine WWE booking him to beat anybody on the roster? Or I mean, I don't even know. I don't even want to say almost anyone, like pretty much anyone on the roster. Is that his upside, Kurt?
I think he has a legit shot at getting to that level. The best way I could describe him, he's like a modern version of Samoa Joe. Like kind of if Samoa Joe were like 15 years younger in WWE, this is what he would have been. And I feel like within a year or so, I could definitely see him, challenging Cody for the title at a PLE and a PLE main event or something along those lines. As far as him being the champion, it could happen. It's possible, but I could definitely see him being as a person to be in the title mix and like challenging for the title. Let's say like, an LA Knight or close to it.
Yep. Darrell in the chat says, Reed and Roman going at each other kind of made you want to see their match on Sunday. If Reed does well, this could help him leap some people. Derek Mitchell in the chat says, I thought it was funny when Roman said to Bronson, I didn't know you was Samoan. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Okay, I said Seth has not updated anything. He's still, he's in a faction, but he's come out to his music. He's still stealing the spotlight with his outfits and just talking as if there's, it's all about him. Tonight or this afternoon, he was interacting a bit more with Reed and Breaker as kind of a faction leader. He's done some of that in the past, but how are you feeling about the dynamic with Seth and Heyman? Because I don't get a sense of great chemistry, and we talked about it a lot last week, so I won't repeat that. But what do you think, Kurt, of our assessment of that? And is there something you would tweak, or do you disagree with that framing? You think it's fine for what it is? Because ultimately, I think this is a means to get Breaker elevated and Reed elevated, not have Seth completely change who he is. So I think they know what they're doing, but does it sacrifice in the meantime the sense that this is a new era, a new faction led by Heyman?
I think it's more or less something that's more of a temporary thing. I don't see Rollins and Heyman being together for years at a time, like Heyman was with Brock and Heyman was with Roman. I feel like it's something that's good for now because Rollins was going to turn heel, needed to turn heel, and I guess they felt like Heyman needed to do something to separate himself from Roman. So this is like their best way of going about it, and to help the next generation of Bronson Reed and also Braun Breaker was a plus in that sense. So I could see why they, put them together in that regard. As far as their chemistry, it's okay. It's, fine for what it is. But overall, just from what I could see of it so far, it feels like more of a temporary thing. If anything, I see Heyman being better aligned with Braun Breaker than, Seth Rollins, just from the vibe I see of them together. So if anything, within these next few months, I could definitely see Heyman and Braun Breaker turning on Rollins and then joining forces or something along those lines. Because, Heyman and Rollins, maybe it could get better as time goes on. Maybe we still need to give it a little more time. But from what I see so far, it's not really anything that sticks out to me chemistry-wise.
And it might not matter a ton, because this is, I think, a means to an end more than we're going to create the next great faction. But they want to hit a certain standard so that it feels like when Breaker and Seth break up and whatever side Reed takes, that it feels like it's breaking up something that mattered. So I'm okay with it, just a little disappointed, not super enthusiastic about it, but I do see this, again, the caveat being this is more a means to an ends than an ends. Anything else on the bookended segments on this show, Kurt? The opening segment with Roman and Reed and Heyman, or the closing segment that built up the four-way?
Like I said, I feel like both segments sold those two major matches for Clash in Paris the best way they could, considering it's the go-home show. So I think they did a good job in that sense. They made you as excited as you could be for seeing both matches. And with that being said, I had no complaints. It was fine for what it was. But like I said before, the crowd would definitely put it over the top.
Yeah. Let's talk about Becky Lynch and her promo and her exchange with Nikki Bella, the back and forth. It was supposed to be Nikki calling out Becky. Becky came out and said, I'm not going to come when you call me like a dog. And then Nikki used that to use the B word. So clever. There's something about Nikki that's just always, her emphasis is like, I'm about to say something clever. And it feels like it's, she Googled what's a trendy thing to say 3 years ago and hasn't updated it. Like there's always just a little bit about her act that feels a little desperate to be cool, and it's not quite landing, and it feels a little try hard. But that said, that's some negative comments, but I thought it was maybe her best segment since returning also. I think she and Becky had some good back and forth, even if I'm not, I see through a little bit Nikki just trying too hard to whatever she's doing. I think it kind of worked also, and I think Becky was an entertaining an effective heel who you don't want to cheer. You kind of want to have fun booing her, I think. And I think that's an okay place for her character to land. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought Becky did great heel work here. As much as you may have wanted to cheer because of how great she is, she was just too good of a heel to cheer. And Nikki Bella, I don't think you could really get behind her the same way you could get behind a Bayley or a Lyra Valkyria. But I feel like she served her part well, and she's a big enough star and has a big enough fan base where like enough of the crowd will be behind her. I thought some of her verbiage was fine, and I agree she was better here than she's been in any other segment she's been in since she came back. But still, I think Becky smoked her on the mic overall more than anything. It just more overall, even though Nikki Bella is the babyface and Becky's the heel in good conscience, I still cannot cheer for Nikki Bella over Becky. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror doing that.
What do you think of Nikki's act? Not relative to Becky, just in general. Like, do you like her as a legend coming back? It's a good kind of late summer thing to do. It's okay.
It's fine. Look, I've even said on this show before, Nikki Bella is not my personal favorite per se, but I do recognize that she has talent, and I do recognize the name that she is and the star power that she brings. And just being in arenas where she came out, she gets great reactions. And even if you're not a fan of the Bellas, and even if they're not your cup of tea, they do have a strong fan base that shows support for them. And with that being said, you have to cater to that fan base one way or another. And in general, I've seen her have good matches before. I've seen her have good matches with Charlotte, with Paige, with Natalya, all those other people. So when it comes to those aspects of her, I think she delivers, and I think she holds her own of it. But just in general, her character is not really something I, get too excited about or like go out of my way to want to watch. But it serves its purpose. That's the best way I could describe it. Serves its purpose.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Jack Reeve in the chat says the bitch line felt like the most scripted thing in about 3 weeks. BJF said Nikki just wanted to break the bitchometer. TYS says Becky's line about coward being worse than the C word that she was thinking of did get me chuckling.
That was good. That was good. The C word part.
Yeah. Do you think ultimately we'd be better off with Becky having never turned heel these 2 times and just been the centerpiece, top tier babyface? Okay, so make that case.
She needed to turn heel for the Bianca Belair feud. I didn't like what happened that night. It happened at SummerSlam with a 26-second loss, but then the way they paid it off at WrestleMania next year with that match they had and Bianca winning, it all made sense, and it made everything all worth it in the end. And I thought the work she was doing in that heel run was entertaining. People had their mixed feelings about it. People had their criticism, but I personally got a kick out of it. Like the way she would like pronounce words and like wear those big glasses. Yeah, I thought it was hilarious. But this run of her being a heel, I think, is better. I think she definitely has more of a stranglehold on it, and I feel like she's less cheerable than she's been as a heel in the past. And also one thing that stands out about her more, that new theme music. That new theme music is one of the best things she could have ever done for her character. So, yeah, I feel like her heel runs, even if people like to cheer her more than boo her, they've been necessary, they've worked, and they've accomplished what they've needed to.
We'll throw a chat up from Derek Mitchell on Nikki. Nikki is a generation before Becky, but seems like she's from a bygone era. Yeah, I don't know if it's Nikki or the era she emulates or resembles. Yeah. Jack Reese says, I don't mind her being back, but it does feel like she came straight from 2012 when every other woman has evolved beyond her. I don't know. But Becky's fun. Becky is fun to watch right now. On the staying in the women's category, we had another vignette with Bayley. I like the idea that Bayley has inner turmoil. That there's the voice from the past about hugs and staying positive, and then the cynical, more current voice, and that the current self, is hearing both voices. I think there's ways to convey that message in a way that doesn't stray from the normal narrative lane that WWE tells stories in, which is where we cannot hear inner thoughts. Because if we can hear Bayley's, why can't we hear what CM Punk's really thinking about LA Knight and Jey Uso all the time, or what Paul Heyman really thinks about Roman Reigns, or what Roman Reigns really thinks about crowd booing Cody Rhodes, where he just went, interesting, didn't defend Cody, didn't throw him under the bus either. Maybe doing nothing is throwing him under the bus. I don't know. It just makes no sense. It feels like the product of somebody who doesn't understand the normal parameters that they might not apparently not think about, but shouldn't be broken. Now, maybe they just plug their nose and go, you know what, the ends will justify the means. This is stupid. It's narrative breaking. It makes no sense, but it's kind of fun. It's kind of entertaining, and it's pro wrestling. And we've done it before, certainly in the COVID era with cinematic stuff. There's other examples. Most of the other examples historically we've been critical of, and we didn't go, but if they keep doing it, we'll eventually be okay with it because they'll have done it long enough. I don't think that's a good reason to decide to like something or accept something just because a dumb thing is done over and over again over the years or decades. That is not a justification. It's just making a case that similar mistakes were made in the past. But I think a lot of people in TYS in the chat, I think, reflects what WWE thinks the audience's reaction to it is. He says these Bayley, or TYS says these Bayley vignettes do feel a little Lucha Underground. I don't mind it, but it is strange to be able to hear her thoughts. And I think they're counting on us not being bothered, the audience not being bothered by it, even if it's a little strange. Where are you, Kurt?
I think it's been better this week compared to the last week or two. I kind of feel like this week it felt like we were going somewhere, especially with them showing Lyra's reaction afterwards. I can clearly see this leading to Bayley showing up within the next week or two and then just beating the hell out of Lyra and just beating her senselessly to the point where it leads to their actual feud in these next few months. I feel like this is basically what all of this has been being done for.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, as far as this week's, like I said, I think it was one of the better ones. How playing off of the fact that she was at WrestleMania with the championship one year, and this year she wasn't even on the show, kind of pushing the buttons of things that really did happen and turning them into the story. I feel like with what she was doing with her reactions, the way she was kind of trying to deal with those voices, I think she did great in that sense. But I'm still going to give it more time before I give my full conclusion about it. I feel like this week kind of gave me more hope for where it's going next. But this is definitely way better than the Papa Shango Ultimate Warrior stuff from back in the day. I heard you guys talk about this on the show last week. It's nowhere near as bad as that. So
why
I said,
not,
I'm
though?
giving it more.
Well, and let me frame it this way, because what you just said is an answer to a completely different question than mine. I agree this is a storyline that might make sense. I agree that it was done better this week. The story they're telling, I'm not against the story they're telling. I like the story they're telling, and you're spot on in where it's going. And I'm nodding along that this week clarified it and amplified the spirit of what they're trying to do that I agree with. But what I want to know from you is, why can we hear her thoughts, and why isn't WWE thinking this makes no sense in the narrative structure? I mean, there's just no other genre of entertainment that veers this far from... Anthony Michael Hall in 12, you talked about Breakfast Club. In 16 Candles, there's one moment. It's worth it. It's a fun movie. It's along the same lines as Breakfast Club. He looks out his car window and looks at the camera once in the whole movie. Otherwise, there's no acknowledgement of the camera. So, that was sort of, narrative breaking in the sense, breaking the fourth wall, whatever. But most shows do it consistently. Modern Family, Three's Company, Mr. Furley looked at the camera. No one else did.
Saved by the Bell.
There we go. Yes, it can be done, but pro wrestling's narrative structure is it's a sport. The presumption is it's a sporting event, and we aim cameras at things that are happening. It's not. There's no other context where we can suddenly hear someone's head. A cheaply made TV movie of the week in the 1970s might have had inner thoughts that the movie audience can hear, but it isn't filmed like a documentary. It's filmed like a movie where there's post-production and that kind of latitude. So that's, I don't understand full forgiveness of this as as long as it makes sense and it's entertaining, I'm okay with it. It completely breaks the notion that this is a sporting event that we're here to film, and anything we see just happens to be happening. When you see Bayley and her inner thoughts, you're just taking the audience into a different way of watching wrestling. And it's not necessarily something they're consciously thinking of, but the end effect is, that's right, they're putting on a show for us. And none of this is real, and you're left with that vibe. It's kind of like why artificial sweetener doesn't taste the same as sugar. It just feels like it's not natural. There's a weird aftertaste. There's something about it that doesn't satiate your brain getting calories, because there's no calories. It's just a trick. It feels inauthentic. This feels inauthentic to the framework in which wrestling is normally presented, and I think it comes with more of a price than the price they would pay for simply doing it differently. And having Bayley go, there's all these voices in sitting in a sit-down interview going and literally voicing it out. The young me is going, Bayley, what about hugs and positivity? And I hear this, and she can quote what one voice is saying. And then the interviewer can go, yes, but it sounds like there's another voice. She goes, yes, there's this other voice who's saying this. People go, well, that's not as fun. Well, right, but at least it isn't narrative structure breaking. It isn't something that's so clearly post-produced and fake that it's hard to get back into the world that WWE normally places us in.
Yeah, I understand that how you can't really hear Roman Reigns' thoughts or CM Punk's thoughts, but yet you can hear Bayley's thoughts. I guess the only explanation I can give is maybe Bayley gave them permission to explore her own thoughts as opposed to those other people. But in general, like I said, I'm giving this a chance. I'm giving this a little more time before we can conclude on where this is going. It's kind of weird to see Bayley do some supernatural type stuff. It's something she's never done before. But who knows? Maybe it'll also be like a different layer, or like maybe a career resurgence for her. It's just still got to give it some time.
Do you want to see more WWE extend this and have more things that where we like? Why not have thought bubbles with graphics above people's heads? No, I'm totally. If you're going to defend this, I want you to defend other aspects of it. If it's interesting that now we can hear Jey Uso thinking his thoughts, and they're going to put a graphic on the screen, a little thought bubble, and we can see words in his head that he's thinking. Then defend that, because this is as stupid as that. And I mean, it just is. Or like, are we going to see like cartoon characters dancing around like in 9 to 5 when they smoked pot and there's dancing characters around? Are we going to see like animated characters floating around in wrestling rings and wrestlers acting like they can see them even though it's CGI? Like, why not? Why stop at hearing Bayley's inner thoughts? Why are we allowing for that and not seeing it as a slippery slope or just a stupid, lazy way to tell the story when there's a better way?
It could be a slippery slope. It could lead to some other ridiculousness that we end up not liking a year from now. But hopefully it doesn't go in that direction, and it just leads to her beating up Lyra, turning heel, and then they can maybe get away from it from there. But like I said, this week was better. So I'll give them more time before I give a full conclusion judgment for it.
I'm offended by Scott TPA's comment. He goes, "Don't be ridiculous, Wade." I'm not the one being ridiculous. I'm asking for a lack of ridiculousness in how things are presented. All right, CJ wants to join us as a caller. He of course will defend anything that Bayley is part of if it seems like she's getting TV time and a push, but he will be critical if he thinks Bayley is in something that's not giving her just due. I know from the chat how he feels about this, but I'll let him say it to the larger audience here. CJ, welcome. We can't hear you. I see the mic is muted.
What's up?
Wade and Kurt. CJ, are you disappointed that Bayley's inner thoughts don't include references to meeting you?
Yeah. Not necessarily, though. Would have been nice, though.
Yeah, of course.
I can see what your objections to it, but I think you're thinking a little too. I think you're a little too worried that they're going to go a little too nuts with this.
No, this is as nuts as it gets. I don't think there's anything more nuts than this. I think there's other things equally nuts.
This is not as bad as the Wyatt stuff or the Bray Wyatt stuff that he did with, like the match he did with Cena.
We stipulated that. We stipulated at the time we were going to give them a mulligan, a free pass because of COVID and lack of crowds. But this was not going to be something that should be part of wrestling going forward. When you have crowds, the presumption returns that this is a sporting event being shot live with cameras who are not influenced, who don't know what's going to happen ahead of time. This totally breaks that. So there was an exception in the Torch universe, in the Wade Keller universe of wrestling coverage. We said, we understand these are difficult times. You don't have a live audience. You're having to be overly, having to be creative about it. But I was, the greatest wrestling match ever with Edge and Randy. I was still critical of the fact that they did a camera shot in the ring that wasn't possible unless they had done the moves multiple times and filmed them and then spliced it together. I didn't give them slack for that back then. And this is, equally stupid and inexcusable. And I will not bend on this. Even if it's entertaining and leads to a good storyline and crowds react to it positively. And I don't think it's a line worth crossing.
Don't you think it's at least very interesting to?
Yes, and thought bubbles would be interesting too, and dancing animated characters would be interesting, and they're all equally. I don't want to watch wrestling because I don't want every wrestling booker without an understanding of the narrative structure of how to tell the story in the genre you're in to do things on a whimsical basis that are interesting. The standard of accepting something in pro wrestling isn't whether it's interesting. It'd be interesting if suddenly people started selling drop kicks that they get hit with by invisible wrestlers. That'd be interesting. But it'd be stupid, and it would break the narrative of everything else. Nothing else would make sense. It'd be interesting if suddenly every match wrestlers were covered in green slime, and no one knew why, and it led to something later. But no, it would be. That's not actually. That would be less stupid than being able to hear Bayley's inner thoughts, because there's something physical you could believably imagine people are covered in green slime for some reason. you can't. There's no way we should be able to hear Bayley's inner thoughts.
I think you're being too critical on it.
What do you disagree with me on? Well, I mean, you know my stance. I've laid it out. I think wrestling should.
You went away.
Can you hear me, Kurt?
I can hear you.
Okay. So, GZA, yeah, your camera's
Are you
locking
there?
up. Your camera's locking up, not ours. Now you're back.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yep.
You're good.
I have laid out my parameters. I'm not being overly critical. I'm being consistent. I want everything I see to be something that a cameraman who was hired 3 minutes before the show started could have filmed, and they show it to us. I want it to be grounded in the real world. I think that's actually essential, more in pro wrestling than anywhere else, because the match outcomes aren't real. You should not take that kind of creative license because it's creative and interesting. Where does it stop? Yeah.
I hear where you're coming from. So where do you think they're going, and what did you think with the Lyra part at the end?
Yeah, so I will move on. I mean, I made my point. I'm pushing back kind of. I'm serious, but I'm doing it playfully. Just I want to kind of draw to you guys an acknowledgement of where I'm coming from, and a little budging a little bit on maybe the standard for what should be embraced isn't just what's interesting. But I do think Lyra being worried for, and again, everything that's happening now could be accomplished with Bayley simply telling us what's going on in her head. I think it'd be super interesting to watch that, and it would land in a believable way and not turn off a pretty big portion of the audience, I think, when they do nonsense like this. But the Lyra thing is interesting because she is concerned for her. And I do not know. And I kind of went back and forth watching this, as much as I'm, like offended and turned off by the creative choice of how to present it.
Come on, you're going a little nuts with using offended.
No, it offends me when people run wrestling and think that this belongs in the narrative structure of wrestling. I've watched and invest enough in wrestling. I get offended when the mindset allows for this. I think it's very amateur hour, but even if it's interesting and well produced. But again, I want to move on from that and say this: while I was watching it, I did not know which way Bayley was going to go. Like, I was like, is the younger NXT voice going to win out, or is the more cynical, I've been cheated and I've been wronged voice going to win out? I think they're doing an intentional and an effective and intentional job creating a mystery over, for instance, how she will react when Lyra Valkyria finally sees her and tries to influence which voice she listens to. And I think it's an interesting position to put Lyra in. What's your speculation, CJ? And then Kurt, when he's done, you jump in. I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Very interested to see where it goes. I guess maybe it will make Lyra apologize to Bayley for telling her to get out of her life or leave her alone, whatever phrase she used. So that could be interesting. Son of a... Did you go away again?
You're frozen, but I think I heard what you said. Kurt, why don't you jump in with your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we're gonna see a segment where Lyra calls Bayley out to the ring and like apologizes to her and says, "I'm worried about you. I'm concerned for you. Please, please, be my friend again. I'm sorry for everything." And then Bayley, I think, will forgive her at first, and then Bayley's gonna turn on her, and then that's gonna signal Bayley's heel turn. Definitely it goes down this way, regardless of how it happens. This all ends with Bayley beating the hell out of Lyra, and then their feud ignites from there.
CJ, what do you want to see happen?
Really love to see is the return of Hugger Bayley, but
I figured
it's not going to happen.
I don't know if that's going to happen because she said, at least in 2 interviews I've seen, where she's been asked about that, and she's like, absolutely not. But again, she never said no to it being a one-off. So maybe
she might be trying to throw you off.
Or maybe it's
a Chris Jericho
that
approach.
Was regular Hugger
Just
Bayley.
lie.
Maybe he's like evil Hugger Bayley.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it's a very good thing is people are interested in her again and talking about it right now. Because Bayley her ring work has never been an issue. It's just sometimes her character work, the character she's been given, maybe she hasn't done it as good as she could have. But there are times where she's been given crappy creative and fans have kind of lost it a little luster for.
You are breaking Bayley's heart with how critical you're being of Bayley right now.
I'm just trying to be.
Why are you so negative?
She can't do wrong. No,
you're throwing her under the bus.
Now I'm being too critical.
So you're
what
saying
the hell,
you're saying
buddy?
She should be cut? You're saying her performances aren't up to standard.
She deserves a raise. And both times, Bayley don't straps.
All right,
but
Kurt?
don't you think it's
she should go to AEW and help Mercedes Moné carry all her belts?
That's a fighting words.
Oh God! I'm just playing.
AEW does not deserve Bayley. Come on, don't make me watch that garbage.
It's not that bad. It's not that bad.
Bayley is above AEW. Come on, let's be honest.
Do you think Mercedes Moné is above AEW?
Yes.
Okay.
But let's not get.
Okay, never mind. Yeah, but the fact that Bayley survived that Bayley This Is Your Life segment from all those years ago, that is a miracle in itself, because that was just.
But the biggest thing is
for like 2 years, it like really derailed her.
But the beginning of the end of Hugger Bayley was when Vince made her too nice to use weapons in a weapons match against the life.
Yeah, that was stupid.
You remember?
Yeah.
I was screaming at my TV. Oh my God.
That's another reason not to miss Vince, but that's another story.
Where we go?
Yeah. CJ, your connection's rough. Anything else you want to add before we move on?
And do you think maybe one day it might be Hugger Bayley, and then because he's hearing multiple voices? So do you think it might be a switch, or do you think eventually we'll get a consistent character here?
Yeah, I think that's a good point CJ brings up, Kurt, is maybe we see her come out and everyone goes, oh, she listened to the good voice in her head, the earnest one, the innocent one, the optimistic one who thought the world was a good place. And then the next second, something else, she's triggered or she loses and she decides she needs to be the other one. Do you think she could go back and forth, actually manifesting different personalities in the ring? That would be
overkill. I think that would be overkill.
Yeah. What was the name of the guy who snapped in the ring? Oh, how can I forget his name?
Snapped in the ring.
Festus.
Or wasn't watching during the time he was around.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like he kind of had a moment where he'd be like sort of fun loving, and then all of a sudden the bell rings and he just like took, it's like, dogs who see a squirrel and they're like go from happy to just like, I need to hunt. The primal kicks in. There could be like little moments where something happens and kind of triggers different sides of Bayley. And so Lyra's trying to figure out what to do with this and talk her down from being so, unpredictable and just bouncing all over the place. So, I mean, I do not like the framework of these videos. I'm strongly against them, but and I think it does damage. I think there's a better way to do it. But I like the story. I mean, I think it makes Bayley. I think this story in this presentation of it is not necessary. Is not a necessary sacrifice to tell the story. So I stipulate to that. But I like the story. It is a journey we've been on with her, and I think that they could do more. They could catch people up a little bit more with Hugger Bayley, like show. Do you think they've done enough? Because that was a while ago when it was in front of a smaller audience. Did enough of today's audience see Bayley as a hugger for this to resonate in the way that people who have watched her entire career or gone back and looked at past footage? No, or not. Like, do you think that they'd benefit from being a little bit more just explicit in catching people up?
Yeah, they could introduce people to it a little more. I'm sure there's a healthy chunk of the audience that remembers the Hugger Bayley as long as it's been. But yeah, a nice refresher would definitely help. And then people could look it up themselves and see for themselves what it was all about if they don't know too much about it. Yeah, I wouldn't mind a reference to it, but I don't want to see her go back to it full time. I feel like she's gotten way past that phase in her career, like to the point where it just wouldn't feel right. It would feel like more of like a regression than an actual progression. So I feel like it's only good for maybe a one-off, and then that's that.
Yep. All right. Let's shift to. Whoops, I muted my headphones there. Let's shift to the Rhea Ripley Roxanne Perez match and stay in the women's division. What did you think of Rhea's win here? I do want to criticize Michael Cole. He gave away the match outcome when after the commercial break, he said that Ripley was trying to beat a very game Roxanne Perez. Nobody has ever been called very game by any wrestling announcer over the decades, and this goes back to the 70s at least. and won a match. That's always what you call somebody who puts up a fight and loses. And so Cole totally telegraphed that. And so no, I challenged WWE to have Michael Cole call somebody game and have them win. That is the term that was used for jobbers who put up a fight and got in a couple hope spots before losing to the finisher in a squash match. The announcer would say, and this is 1970s territory stuff, that blank and blank was very game in this match, but ultimately lost. But that little note aside, what'd you think of the way that they played that match out, Kurt?
So the match was fine. I didn't think it was as good as the match with Io and Roxanne Perez 2 weeks ago,
Right.
but
Yeah.
I still thought it was fine. It accomplished what it needed to. Roxanne losing doesn't hurt her at all. I think she's still on the come up with how she's had the momentum she's had this whole year, and I think she's only going to get better from here. And to be honest, this thing was only used to like sell the post-match stuff where Raquel and Roxanne attacked Rhea afterwards, and then Io came out to help her, and then Io and Rhea were teaming up, and then Asuka and Kairi got mad at Io for teaming up with Rhea. So I feel like more than anything, this match was all made just to set up all of that. So like the Raquel and the Roxanne stuff was like literally like an afterthought. So yeah, I like what they've been doing to build up that tension with like Io and the Kabuki Warriors, and I'm looking forward to seeing when they do that tag team match. I definitely think it's going to be a show stealer whenever it does happen.
Playing into what I liked seeing Asuka in the background with Kairi observing, observing the Rhea hug, and with Io and throwing a fit. Because what I like is when there's something we're not supposed to see that we see, or something that's happenstance. It feels more real. I believe more as a viewer when I'm immersed in the WWE world and the way that they present things. I believe more that Asuka's really upset with Io when I see something that doesn't feel scripted and staged. Obviously, it feels scripted and staged if you think a second about it, but it's as a technique, that is something you could imagine seeing in sports. Like, you could imagine a star basketball player being interviewed in the back hallway after a game, after a loss, and spinning it. And then a player in the background looking over and just going, rolling his eyes. There's my teammates, who's the one who made the bad pass or made a bad decision to throw the ball or shoot instead of pass. Look at him, and he rolls his eyes and gets caught on camera. You'd be like, whoa, that's newsworthy. That wasn't supposed to be seen, and we saw it. I like that. Does Paul Levesque overdo it? For a while he did, but now he's pulled back a little. And I thought that was a cool moment because it rewards you for paying attention, and it feels it's being presented in a way that goes out of its way to feel less scripted than a lot of stuff we see. It feels real. So I like that. I also like it better than just those women just yelling at each other and screeching at each other, where I think they all just kind of lose ground.
Yeah. That whole thing last week was weird when like Io started screaming and then just like walked away and all that. Yeah, that was a little strange. So they played it out a lot better this week than last time.
Yeah. And just when Io is yelling, and I don't know. Yeah.
At least give us subtitles.
Well, just let them act like
you're not gonna like that.
No, let the baby faces act like dignified adults. Like, just like, don't have these women who English isn't their first language communicate to us by overmodulating and screeching. I just think I get they have men do it sometimes too, yelling at each other, but not as much. The way that tension is the message of tension and dissension in the Judgment Day is delivered is clever. It's understated. In a pro wrestling context, understated. It's a little look from JD or Dom kind of doing something in a way you can tell he knows he's BSing. Like, you get rewarded for paying attention to body language, to subtle reactions to things. The Judgment Day was built on that. I don't know why they can't let Io Sky tell her story through facial expressions instead of screeching and trying to out-yell everybody else. It's not pleasant TV, and I think it's unbecoming. And it's been a pattern with how the women have been presented, including like Rhea Ripley and in the lead up to WrestleMania 2, just she was portrayed in a way that I don't think typically top men are portrayed. Maybe some lower card people are. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead here.
Yeah, I could see what you mean by that. I remember that WrestleMania bill where like Rhea was like kind of coming off unlikable, and then after WrestleMania they just got away from it, and like everything between her and Io seemed like fine after that. And like after that match at like Evolution, they were all buddy and whatnot. But yeah, I like the fact that they're teaming up right now. I like the chemistry they have as, partners and, on screen, I guess besties in that sense. And I'm looking forward to seeing when Asuka like officially turns, like when she officially attacks Io within, I guess, the next week or so, because we definitely know what's coming soon. And yeah, this has been like a good, like, side storyline for them for now, because neither one of them, I think, need the title per se at the moment, which we should actually get into also because of the whole announcement with Vaquer. Yeah, so we'll see what happens with all of this. It's definitely nice holding place for them to come to for now until WrestleMania season starts, and then they could be more implemented into the title picture.
Scott TP in the chat says, poor Kairi Sane being stuck in the middle. Her acting has been brilliant. Let's not look. You brought it up. Let's talk about Adam Pearce addressing Stephanie Vaquer. She had a match coming up Sunday for the title. Pearce, like, I have an idea in mind. I can't get it ready by Sunday. We're going to have to kick that down the road. Will you be patient with me? He asked permission, and Vaquer kindly said yes, but also seemed a little, not upset, but just like, all right, but I earned this. I want this. I was ready to do this. How do you think they handled that, and what do you think is going to be the result?
I think they're going to maybe do like some kind of tournament where the winner of the tournament faces Stephanie Vaquer probably at WrestlePalooza or possibly Crown Jewel, and then she gets her title shot there. But I feel like it's a wise choice to like move the match away from the card because, Naomi's gone. And to be honest, Vaquer has barely been on TV over the last month, even built for the match anyway. So taking it off the show isn't going to really hurt it per se, and it's not going to hurt her per se. So I think it's better to wait to like actually give it more of a build and something more to like, set up over the next few weeks. And I don't think she even needs to win the title in that match per se. They can still build it a little longer, and that could like put more of a chip on her shoulder for when eventually she does win the belt. But I do think, like, yeah, just leaving it off of Clash in Paris and not rushing into it was a good idea. I'm glad that they're waiting.
Do you think they've done enough with Vaquer to have her just step in and kind of fill a gap left with the Naomi departure and having to kind of reshuffle things? Or is it, because sometimes shooting someone to the top just makes a statement. This person is that good. Other times it can be, whoa, we're not ready for her in this spot yet.
Yeah, I don't think they should rush into it with that. With her in that sense. There's no rush to put the title on her. She's great. She's popular, but you don't need to put the title on her right now. You could maybe put the title back on EO. You could even maybe put the title back on Rhea, possibly. I wouldn't be mad at that. They could set up for like a Rhea and Vaquer match possibly at WrestleMania, or even Raquel Rodriguez. Raquel Rodriguez is even like building a lot of momentum recently. You could definitely put the belt on her, have like a little heel run with the belt for a while until she loses it. So yeah, either one of those scenarios I think could work, but only time will tell. But yeah, you don't need to rush putting the belt on her right now.
I want to get into the Judgment Day, the men's side of things in a moment. I want to read, so I don't forget, a couple of comments going back to our discussion on the Vision and Bronson Reed's elevating and Seth and the dynamic and chemistry there. Jack Grief said, I can see Bronson Reed being an IC champ or a big heel to challenge for WWE's world titles. TYS says, I still feel like Seth's persona feels desperate. There's a distinct lack of chemistry with him and the rest of the Vision at the moment. Derek Mitchell said, I do think you want some synergy with Seth and Heyman, even if the assignment is to help Braun Breaker specifically, and also Bronson Reed. And Jack Reeve adds, personally, it feels like Reed and Breaker have tweaked their gimmick well to fit this and take a step up, but Seth hasn't done anything. And that's kind of my point. I don't really know what the dynamic is between Seth and Heyman. I don't have a sense of how would you describe the relationship for someone who missed the last few months of TV?
Well, Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman?
Correct, yep.
Acquaintances, but not friends. That's the best way I could describe it. Acquaintances, but not friends. And I agree with that comment in the chat. If to be all honest, Rollins has been the least interesting part of this whole group ever since it started. His outfits have toned down. Him as a character and him as his promos, they're fine, but they don't really stick out. Yeah, if anything, Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker have been more interesting in this stable than he's been ever since it started. And I refuse, considering that he's a heel, I refuse to sing his song when they play it in the arena. Like when he won at SummerSlam, I refuse to sing along with it. I'm like, I'm not cheering this. No way. He is the heel. I'm not cheering for any of this.
And it seems like if you want to be booed, you wouldn't want fans singing your song. I think it's an indictment of Seth's understanding of what a heel is and how to sacrifice something that makes you seem really over. I know, the idea is, well, people are paying money to go sing Seth's song. You can't take that away from the fans. It's like what the fans should be paying for is an immersive experience where they buy into the world that they're in, and you are doing something blatantly that contradicts that world, which is fans singing to the song of a world champion who they desperately want to see lose a world title to anyone, and they don't like. And WWE is just willingly flaunting the idea that what matters more is crowd participation. Going back to my initial kind of point about what WWE should be taking satisfaction in when it comes to crowd reactions. And the satisfaction should not come. It's not, there's worse things, silent crowds openly rebelling. But the ideal reaction is not, like you said, you want a whole crowd of you, Kurt. People are like, I don't like this guy. He's a heel. They've convinced me he's not someone I should be rooting for or in any way wanting to see have any success. And so why would I sing a song just because it's fun? To spite him, I'm not going to. But they don't. They're the culture of how they make decisions and present things is a number one thing is we want to see fans having fun and enjoying themselves. And it even if it undercuts everything else that is the core of their storytelling. And I think they've lost sight of what counts most, which is, people wanting to see someone win and wanting to see somebody lose and titles mattering. And instead it's about the music. And I think Seth is lost in that. And I think what we see in the lack of nuance or adjustment to his character and a lack of really any evidence that he's put any thought into how he and Paul Heyman should react to each other. We learned nothing about the dynamic between those two. It's almost like they just, when we see them on camera, that's the only time they ever are together. Like, as that's what it comes across as. They're a coach and a top player who never talk to each other until the game starts. And then you can just tell there's not chemistry and they're not helping each other.
Yeah, this whole heel run with Rollins, like it just doesn't feel the same as some of his past ones. Like he just doesn't feel like a different character. Because usually when most people turn heel, they switch things up. They switch their theme music. They switch their look. They switch their moveset, whatever it is. But Rollins, in all honesty, he just feels the exact same to me as he did 6-7 months ago before WrestleMania. And for being the top heel on Raw, that's not a good thing. And especially he's the world heavyweight champion, the leader of like the main stable on the show. Yeah, you should like definitely have a different feeling for somebody in that position than what fans have for Seth Rollins right now. Like he doesn't feel like Ric Flair when he led the Four Horsemen or Triple H when he led Evolution. Yeah, just not that kind of vibe with Seth Rollins. And yeah, it definitely hurts him as far as like, the reaction you give him and as far as how you perceive him as being the top heel. They definitely need to change that if they want to or if they even care. But until then, yeah, it's just very confusing. And that's not always a good thing.
I don't know if you've thought about it, but is there anything, if let's say a few months ago you were told Paul Heyman and Seth Rollins are going to align. Spoiler alert. How do you think, following Heyman's character and following Seth's character, how would you describe the ideal kind of presentation of how they interact with each other? Is Heyman the alpha? Is Seth the alpha? Are they like-minded, or do they each have a different strength and they lean on that? Like, I have nothing to offer as far as that goes. Like, Seth is just the same old Seth freaking Rollins with the song and the outfits and cackling, and he's a world champ, and I'm the king, just spouting platitudes and being gaudy and over the top. And Heyman is sort of managing Breaker and Reed, and Seth just sort of gets in the frame sometimes. Like, that's what it seems like to me. Do you think, based on Seth and Heyman's character, there's something that you could imagine would have been something to latch on to and amplify in terms of their dynamic?
I think maybe they could have leaned more in their, shared hatred for Roman and shared hatred for Punk. And then maybe Heyman could have said that I've always seen your talent ever since the Shield days. I always saw you as the real star of the group. I should have seen it sooner and joined up with you sooner. Yeah. And they could have maybe built a relationship off of that. And then Rollins on the flip side could have said that I could have used a wise man like you years ago. I would have gotten a lot further in my career than Roman Reigns if I had you on my side sooner. They could have played something off of that, but they just never did.
Like J.J. Dillon was the guy who handled the business affairs so the Horsemen could party. Paul Ellering did all the contract signings so Hawk and Animal could go to the gym. Bobby Heenan was the negotiator while Nick Bockwinkel was reading books and getting smarter and working out and practicing his move. All the great so many great manager-wrestler dynamics. Jim Cornette, he was a guy with the money. He hired wrestlers to wrestle so that he could brag about having champions in his realm, and they signed up with him because he paid them. He took care of all the nonsense off camera, and they got to concentrate on being wrestlers. And he helped them succeed by interfering with a loaded tennis racket. You could see the dynamic between them. With Heyman and Lesnar was similar. Heyman was a guy who was the advocate. He's making things happen. He's the manager who is booking big fights for Brock and letting Brock focus on nothing but being violent. And with Roman Reigns, it was the subservient, yes, my tribal chief, but I'm a wise man. And Roman let or encouraged and fostered this notion that Heyman had something to offer him, that Heyman had a lot of knowledge. And Roman, as much as Heyman looked up to Roman, Roman gave that respect back and said, this person is not a physical threat, but he's been a lot of places, he's seen a lot, and he is wise, and he can help steer me when I get off track. I don't get the sense Seth's given a second of thought to who Paul Heyman is, other than a guy in the background who gets to share promo time with him. And I'm not saying that's true. I'm saying the end result conveys the idea that Seth has done nothing but think about his outfit and making sure that people still sing to a song and he can get his mic time in. And when someone else's time, it's disconnected and they do their thing. And I don't sense that with Heyman, Reed, and Breaker. So I just don't think that's what you want. There was something there, as you laid out, Kurt, that they could have done that would have explained Seth adjusting his character. And maybe he's still over the top, but there's moments where Heyman goes, Seth, remember what we talked about? And then Seth gets more serious for a minute. Or, whatever. There's just something where it feels like Heyman has some influence on Seth and has adjusted him so that he can ultimately be more successful and hold the title. And we're not getting that.
No, we're not at all. But we all know he's retaining on Sunday. He's going to keep the title for a while. I could even see him keeping it as far as WrestleMania goes. But hopefully they can maybe change courses with him as a heel character in the coming months, because as far as right now goes, I don't really buy him in that sense that I would buy like a Gunther. Even a Gunther, I take more seriously as a top heel than Rollins right now.
Yep, I agree. Kurt, tell me what you thought of Rusev's promo, and then a little bit meta with Sheamus's response. Both, Rusev's been a little bit meta in terms of talking a little bit on the periphery of going to AEW, this abyss, but now he's back. I liked the lines in Rusev's promo tonight, but it's still weird that he exists in this dark room realm. And then, so I was down on it, but then Sheamus kind of calling him out for that, I thought made it more acceptable that he's only in this kind of vignette dark room realm talking into a camera. But at some point, it doesn't feel like Rusev is even part of WWE in the way other wrestlers are. He's just in it. Same thing with AEW. Like, there's something about a ring entrance and walking to the ring and being in the presence of fans in front of a live audience. And I didn't think WWE was just going to pick up where AEW left off in presenting Rusev in a way that made him feel disconnected from the universe that fans are invested in.
Yeah, I thought both promos they did were fine. I feel like that was the best way they could sell the match coming up on Sunday between the two of them, because I feel like they've done everything they can physically to like really sell how serious this feud is. So I feel like both of those promo packages were effective and they, accomplished what they needed to. And as far as the match Sunday, I feel like it's definitely going to be something that we come away from that show talking about as one of the highlights of it, because this is like the first real PLE match I think Rusev has had since he came back, and it's going to be the blow off to this long feud that's been going on for months. It's going to be in a foreign country and all that good stuff. So yeah, I think it definitely has all the recipes to be something special, and yeah, I can't wait to see how they blow it off.
Yeah. I did like Rusev's line at the end. He said, I've learned it's impossible to be good when you're destined to be great. And it played a couple different ways. Like, it's impossible to be good. I'm a heel. I'm not going to play by rules. It's impossible for me to be a good guy, so to speak. But then he did a play on things, which is it's impossible to be good when you're great, Yeah. And so I thought that was clever, and I didn't think it was too obtuse or over the top or just word salads like sometimes the Wyatt features have been over the years, and the Malachi and Aleister Black features have been. And then Sheamus is kind of calling him out for it. And it is what it is. It's a PLE worthy match, but I'm interested in what results from all of this. And BJF just asked what I was about to bring up, so I'll throw it up in the chat. Do you think the end game is of the feud with Sheamus and Rusev is them being a tag team like the Bar? The way Sheamus talked tonight on Raw, though, Kurt, that crossed my mind.
I think the most we'll get out of that is if after the match is over on Sunday, they shake hands. That's probably the most we'll get out of that. Beyond that, I don't want to see them be a tag team. I don't want to see them play off of each other like that and whatnot. No, this feud ends Sunday. It could end with a handshake. That's fine, but I don't want to see anything else beyond that. I feel like Rusev probably needs to do his own thing, be a solo act. And Sheamus, who knows, if by some chance he ends up winning, maybe he'll finally get the chance to win that Intercontinental title that it's been eluding him for so long.
For people who didn't see the show or forgot, like Rusev or Sheamus said, when I heard Rusev was coming back, I cringed. And he said that no one is buying him speaking from a darkened room and beating up smaller guys. And then they showed Tozawa, but it could have been a dig at AEW. He said something has changed and the real Rusev has awoken. And he said just days away from the potential show stealer. He wants him to realize that he re-earned his respect, but also know he pulled him out of it. He pulled it out of him. He pulled this respect-worthy version out of him. I made you relevant again, and he said it'll be a banger. Some of that felt conciliatory to me, like, or hey, I'm bringing something out in you, and maybe we can work together now that I have. And I think that's where BGF is coming from in his question too, and presenting that.
Yeah, this definitely has done a lot for both of them. I feel like this has been like the best use of Rusev for him ever since he came back, to put him in a feud to this degree. They've had some kick-ass matches, and yeah, this is going to be the final kick-ass match in this feud. And as far as where Rusev goes next, maybe if AJ ends up winning the Intercontinental title, maybe him and AJ Styles could feud. They could do something along those lines. That would make for some fun matches if they go down that route. But yeah, so far, yeah, this is the best thing that Rusev could have done first coming back to the company. And yeah, we'll see where it goes from there.
I said I want to talk about Judgment Day, the men's side of things. Who would have thought Finn Balor would be the setup guy for Dominic Mysterio? But that's what we saw tonight. AJ Styles getting a clean win over Finn Balor in about 8 minutes. It was not billed as a dream match, a showcase match to the great workers of the past 15 years. None of that. This is all about the characters and the story they're telling. And the story being, Cole saying at the end, I wonder what Dom will have to say about Balor losing like that. Dom has become, the young guy who is the one with the belt, who is kind of dictating and becoming the leader of this group. He is not 17. He's not 22. He's in his late 20s. This is somebody who's grown into this role. I buy it. But it still is weird to have Finn Balor being the guy who loses to set up Dom. I haven't fully adjusted to that reality, even though I embrace it. Kurt, what do you think?
Yeah, it's so weird. When you look back at Judgment Day 3 years ago, it would have been the other way around. But now it's, Dominic is the star and Finn Balor is a supporting player. And yeah, that match he had with AJ tonight, it was fine for the time it lasted. It would have been nice if it went longer considering where they were. But they just needed to make AJ look strong going into the match with Dominic next week. So I get it. And yeah, I feel like within the next few weeks, we're probably going to see more of the tease of dissension between Dominic and Finn again, like they were doing before WrestleMania. I feel like they're probably going to get back to that at some point, and then eventually we'll see a match between them. But I liked what they did tonight. I liked both matches between the Judgment Day solo acts with, Finn going against AJ and also Dragon Lee against JD. I thought that match was fun too. So yeah, we'll see what happens in these next few weeks. But I do have a feeling that Dominic could end up losing that title to AJ next week. I definitely think there's a chance it could happen.
Yeah, I think fans would be all right with that too.
Yeah, they would be.
So we talk about Dragon Lee and JD McDonough, two talented wrestlers. Cole kind of tried to reset things for Dragon Lee by going, hey, remember, this is a guy who was designated by Rey Mysterio as his heir, as the guy who would follow in his footsteps. And then they acknowledged he stumbled a bit, that, it hasn't been a clear path to being the centerpiece luchador at this point. Ultimately, it helps set up him winning meaning more because the idea is maybe he's on the rebound. Obviously, this match had some shenanigans leading up to the finish that left McDonough a little distracted, that allowed Dragon to win with Operation Dragon. What do you think of where Dragon Lee is right now? Just any thoughts on the match quality too? Yeah,
it was really surprising to see him get a win for a change. Like from the new entrance music I saw they played for him when he came out, I was like, yo, this is different. I didn't even know who it was at first. And then I saw him come out and it was him. I'm like, okay, this is cool. And then the fact that he won tonight and won the way that he did, I'm like, okay, maybe there is something to him that they're going to maybe try something with him in the coming months. So yeah, it's a step in the right direction. I don't know if it'll stick. I don't know if it'll last, but it was cool to at least see him get a win for the first time in probably a year or so, especially against somebody from Judgment Day. That's definitely also a good look for him.
Yep. All right. One match we haven't talked about is Penta and Kofi Kingston, the latest with New Day. The story of this match was mostly the commentary with Cole and Graves, where they were Graves was taking the side of a little tongue-in-cheek saying, the New Day should have time to grieve, that when they lost the tag titles, it completely changed the tag division, and Cole kind of pushing back, going, how long do we have to deal with, how long is this grieving thing going? And Cole even asking Graves outright, do you think this grieving thing is a bit of a farce, just a call for attention or a distraction? And so they're, it's good that they're acknowledging what would be natural skepticism by the viewer, which is what is New Day doing? Like, are they serious, or are they just looking to get sympathy or distract from the fact that they aren't what they once were? But in the meantime, you had Penta and Kofi having a nice match. Kofi ended up getting what I'd consider an upset win at this point in this moment in time. Getting a Trouble in Paradise for the win. Yes, Penta turned his attention to Xavier at ringside and Waller, but wasn't overt blatant cheating. It was just sort of Penta as usual, getting a little easily distracted. So what do you think?
Yeah, the match was fun. I was surprised that Kofi won. They've been having Penta beat all three of these guys for weeks and whatnot, so I was surprised that they kind of got the better of him this week. So it's looking like this is going to extend longer. And then I guess Penta will maybe get two partners and they'll have a 6-man tag within the next few weeks. But yeah, the match was fun. I did like that line. I think Corey Graves said, like referencing like the way that New Day is grieving to when the Big Boss Man interrupted the Big Show's father's funeral. I thought that was clever. But more than anything, I think the thing that's been standing out most these last few weeks has been the outfits Xavier Woods has been wearing. They've definitely been something to look twice at. But yeah, overall, like I've said before, and I'll say again, this New Day heel turn and the way it's failed really needs to be studied. Oh my God.
Elaborate on that.
Just from like how hot that heel turn was when they turned on Big E at the end of last year, just from everything they've done from that point to now, I feel like, the New Day's heel turn is definitely one of the black eyes to WWE's creative in 2025, because everybody's been talking about how, much of a step down this year has been compared to the last two. And one of the things you can point at to like how this year hasn't been as good is the way they fumbled the New Day heel turn.
Yep. I think people are looking for New Day to have an edge and not just become kind of mid-card comedy guys. I think they're having fun. I think they feel sort of like they're showing up to work a little more engaged than they had been going through the motions, but that doesn't mean it's the best use of a team like that turning heel. It just made it seem like they're content at this stage just be kind of doing light comedy, haha comedy stuff.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Kurt, anything else you want to bring up? I think we covered every segment or almost every segment.
I'm just looking forward to basically this whole card at Clash in Paris on Saturday. It's a very stacked card, and it's crazy. We only have one SmackDown match out of everybody on the whole show, which is the Cena and Logan Paul match.
I know. Yeah, what are you going to talk about Friday?
We'll see, but Cena really roasted him on Friday. He really got him good in that promo, and I hope he gets him even better in their match and wipes the floor with him.
Yep, Cena brought it. When he's motivated, he is really, really good. I don't always agree with some of the comments he makes in terms of the narrative structure. To go back to that of his comments, where he acts like he's more concerned about pleasing the fans. Serving the company and the company's image as opposed to being a wrestler who wants to win in the right way and be the best wrestler. I think he thinks that's, I don't know. I don't want to get inside his head, but he doesn't focus on that enough for my taste. And it makes it seem like he's just a booster of a brand instead of a wrestler trying to win titles, especially when he doesn't lament losing a title after seeming to care about it so much. So I think he's been off base in some kind of out of focus in some ways, as I've talked about. But when he wants to bring it to insult someone, as we saw with CM Punk, as we saw with The Rock, as we just saw Friday with Logan, he has an edge to him still. And he when he's motivated and he's not just phoning it in, he's still top level. And he knows it, but I just wish there was a little curating of the kind of the foundation from where his comments come. Anyway, go ahead, Akrit.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, this is kind of like the Cena we've been wanting ever since he started this whole retirement tour. That was probably the best promo he's done in 2025 ever since he came back for it. And yeah, it's a shame that we lost most of that because of the heel turn and whatnot, but at least we're getting it now. And there was no person better that he could have roasted and really let have than Logan Paul. And I hope he has a great match with him on Sunday. I think Logan Paul has what it takes to like really pull out a great match out of Cena the way that Cody did at SummerSlam. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it, especially with that Paris setting. Yeah, it's definitely going to be something to watch.
Yes. Very, very good. How do you feel about the afternoon show? So just close with that. Do you like, it's personal for everybody, obviously, depending on where you are in the world and your schedule.
It's different.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's something I could get used to, but I don't mind it.
Yeah. I'm sitting here looking at the clock going, I got to get ready to cover Raw tonight. Like in my head, like that's my internal clock. And it's like, oh, wait, no, I do not need to cover Raw. I just have. So it's been fun. I'm glad this worked out, Kurt, to have you on. I enjoyed our spirited conversation and always really appreciate your perspective and insights.
Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody in the chat for joining us, and we will talk to you all next time. If you have questions for us on the flagship, the email, of course, is wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. Push back on any of my perspectives. I am open to hearing what y'all have to say about opinions I express, and you can back me up or push back. Also bring up other topics. It doesn't have to just be the kind of 8 topics we cover here on the post show. The flagship is a way to get your questions in on a range of other topics. You can become a VIP member with a 7-day free trial at Patreon. Just search PWTorch VIP on your Patreon account or through Spotify, and you can get a 7-day free trial. You can get a 3-day trial on the Apple Podcast app within the Apple universe. Just search PWTorch and subscribe to the charcoal gray feed, and you can upgrade to a full VIP membership or unlock all the VIP shows using that approach, using the Apple Podcast app. And then you can upgrade after a 3-day free trial to a paid subscription, or you can get full details on all the different ways to sign up at pwtorch.com/govip. And that also tells you about the benefits that come with membership. Thanks, everybody, and we will talk to you all next time.